this week's podcast. It's the first podcast we've ever done at Kidevolve, and we're excited. Today we're speaking to Jeff Warren. Jeff is one of the leading mindfulness experts right now, and he creates crazy cool creative mind journeys for Kidevolve. He even has a new book on the New York Times bestseller list. I saw it Indigo myself. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Connor.
10 questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready for your 10 questions.
So, what 3 things led you to start your mindfulness journey?
3 things. That's a good question. The first thing that led me to start my mindfulness journey was just being interested in how my brain worked. I just wanted to know how it worked in there. I started researching a lot, and then eventually wrote a book all about it. And while I was writing that book, that kind of got me introduced to doing the practice, doing meditation and doing mindfulness. And then I would say the second thing that got me really moving on it is when I started to do that, I started to notice that it made my life better, basically. That before, it just was a really good tool that was helpful for me. And I would say the third thing was all the other cool people that were doing it, like people who I would meet at meditation retreats or different places. They just have a way about themselves that was very centered and very honest and real, and I like that. And so I like the people that were doing it.
Yeah, those are all completely eligible answers. Like, completely good reasons.
I'm glad that you approved those answers.
Now that we know why you did mindfulness, or started mindfulness.
Why do you do mindfulness?
I don't know. It makes me feel better, just like you said.
How does it make you feel better?
It makes me feel better in the sense that calmer, I can react differently on situations, and then when I can do that, I don't get into as much conflict, and then I would think that makes anyone's life better.
Good answer.
Now that we know why you started mindfulness, as I was saying before, why did you start doing it for kids instead of just adults, in Kidevolve?
Well, partly you can blame your mom for that last move. I wasn't really thinking about doing it for kids. I started doing it for teenagers, working with a group called Me, because teenagers could really use those skills, and there have been some good research about that.
Totally true.
So you endorse that research?
Yes.
You've seen it, have you? That's awesome. But then your mom tried to convince me that I would be really good for doing this for younger kids as well. And I started doing it, and it turned out I really liked doing it because I got to use my imagination. There's lots of reasons why I loved it. And now I actually think it's one of the most interesting areas to explore mindfulness in.
Cool. I mean, amazing. I think another thing that helps you, tell me if I'm wrong, to do mindfulness is these silent retreats you go on. They sound helpful, yet impossible. Tell me about them.
Yeah. They are challenging. The very first one I ever went on, I think the idea of them sounds worse than actually doing them. The first one I ever went on, I thought, how am I ever going to be quiet for all this amount of time? I'm going to go crazy just being by myself, having to sit still. And it was hard, but you quickly get used to it. And within a few days, I was pretty much used to it. And then it was a different kind of hard. It was not hard because it actually got to the point where you like being in the quiet. It's hard more because when you're sitting, sometimes you feel really agitated or you don't want to sit still, and so you have to really be a samurai, and you're not trying to stifle down those feelings, but let them be there. It's a lot about learning how to be okay with uncomfortable stuff. That's the big picture of this practice, by the way, that you're doing. It's about teaching you how to be okay with whatever life throws at you, and that's just another example.
Are there any for kids?
I don't know. I think if I were to ever run a meditation retreat for kids, I would do it very different. I would have a lot of movement, and I would have a lot of play, and there'd be a little bit of sitting still, but kids are different. Kids need different things, and the idea would just be to make a few days that would be like the best few days ever for kids that would also teach them good skills for life.
Hopefully you invent one, because some kids in my class are real loudmouths.
Is that right? And what happens when you experience a loudmouth kid? Do you use some ninja inner technique moves? Or do you just lash out, or what happens?
Honestly, I just try to ignore them.
You try to ignore them. That's already using a practice of a kind.
And which would that be?
the ignoring practice.
Okay. How's your new 10% Happier book adventure going? And what's it about?
So the book 10% Happier is about going across America in a big bus with a friend of mine, Dan, and a whole bunch of a larger crew. And we were interested in meeting people who wanted to meditate, but were having different kinds of problems. And so what you're seeing now all around North America and everywhere is lots of people getting interested in meditation, but they're trying to figure out how to apply it to their job as a police person, or their job as a social worker, or they're a celebrity and they're in a radio show and they want to learn how to use it. So we met all these different people, and they each had different kinds of challenges, and we tried to help them solve those challenges.
That sounds really interesting. Wish I was there as well. In your opinion, this kind of touches point on what we were on the second question I asked you, but why should kids do meditation?
Why should kids do meditation? Well, I think they could really benefit from some of the skills that are used. I don't think they necessarily need to do meditation in the way that it looks like the way adults do meditation, but it can really help them to build the skills that are inside meditation. So there's skills like learning how to know when to express yourself and move around, and when to actually regulate or not move. That's very helpful. There's skills around learning how to just get calm. There's skills around learning how to be more loving and more friendly and more patient with people who you might be frustrated with. All those things are super useful, I think, for kids, just like they're useful for adults. They're useful for anybody.
I agree with that, totally.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like, you can do these practices are basically playing. You're playing with different ways of different emotional things within your body, different ways of being and acting. Like, you get to play and realize that you can kind of change and build up these muscle groups in different ways. And kids are really, really good at it. I would say they're better than adults, because they don't have any sense of restriction about what they can't do. They're open to things. They don't walk around thinking, well, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. If you say, hey, try this, the kid's going to just try it.
You're at adults.
So they're perfect little meditators, potentially.
Totally.
And they have imagination, which I could talk about, if you want me to talk about that.
Just to keep things short, no thank you, but...
Okay.
How do you come up with the creative mind journeys for Kidevolve?
Well, I gotta be honest, sometimes I just make them up on the spot, based on something I just thought of in that exact moment, some imaginative thing I thought, and I try to think, well, how can I make a practice around that? And I do that. Sometimes I think about when I was a kid and what I had trouble with, like what I had trouble with in my life, or what I thought was hard, and I think, well, what do I wish now that I could have had then? What do I wish that I could have had then? And that is a really inspiration for me, because I didn't have any kind of practice when I was young. I didn't have anyone even talking about this stuff. I just was always acting out and getting in trouble, and no one knew how to, other than just to yell at me, was the only response that adults had. So I think a lot about myself as a kid and what I could have used.
In a sense, on your first point, sometimes it just comes out of you. That's the way that happens to me when I draw. I never think about what I'm gonna draw. I just do some scribbles and then turn them into something.
And what do you find happens when you do that?
Well, it actually makes me more calm.
It makes you more calm, and it probably makes you create something cooler.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just thought about it like crazy ahead of time, sometimes that doesn't end up being the best work. Well, it's the same thing. So we're talking about, it's basically a creative, meditation, these creative mind journeys, they're creative things, just like drawings, just like songs. They're creative works of art, if you like, that anybody can make. And it's just that they're meant to be shared with somebody else, just like a song is.
Yes, totally. And I love music as well.
I know, I've seen some of your videos.
Music, drawing, mindfulness, it's all...
So maybe we should get you to do some guided practices.
Yeah. Anyways...
What would you do one on?
I don't know. Maybe bringing music into mindfulness and seeing how you can correlate it.
Yeah. And what about, give me an example of some kind of challenge that you see happening at school with you or with people or kids you know
I
that you can use help with.
Get bullied a lot. in school.
And so,
it's getting better now, but I was getting bullied a lot.
So what could help with that?
Mindfulness. When I get home, I was actually doing mindfulness in my room. And I don't even think my mom knows this, but I was. And it helped me feel better.
That's awesome. So what did you do exactly when you got home and into your room?
Well, I went to my bed, and I just tried to focus on my breathing, think about everything that happened that day, and think about how it was completely stupid. Think about how it had no sense and why they were doing it. Be an armchair psychiatrist, as my mom would say.
So you would think about those things, and as you were thinking about them, you were also trying to do a bit of a mindfulness practice as well?
Yep.
And that would be just like letting yourself think about it and feeling what you feel, but not necessarily acting out, just sort of being inside those feelings?
Certainly.
Noticing them. That's pretty sophisticated.
Anyways, in your creative mind journeys, you have a lot of really cool characters. I really like the bears in Mellow River. They're really groovy and make me feel calm before I go to sleep. Who's your favorite character you've ever invented at Kidevolve?
I also like the bears in Mellow River. I think my favorite character are the psychedelic octopuses, the dancing octopuses in the undersea journey who move their arms around, and I could really get into that. And when I was making that, I was really into it. I was moving my arms around. I was really identifying.
So was I when I listened to that one.
Oh, word? That's good.
Another character I like is Mr. Ninja, who I think is actually you. Sometimes it's hard to be a ninja when I'm all stressed out inside. How do I be a ninja then?
So being a ninja is like something you always are going to be having to practice a little bit. It's not like you can suddenly just be perfectly a ninja. You're always trying to be a little bit more a ninja. So the more stressed out you are inside, the harder it is to be a ninja. So you just the real skill of the ninja is to actually let yourself feel that inside without acting out on it. And it's just a practice. It's something you keep having to go back to again and again. So you kind of like take a deep breath. You put a nice long out breath. Kind of try to make yourself feel a little bit centered. Deliberately go a little bit slow, but also you gotta really respect the fact that you got this stuff going on inside you. You're not trying to crunch it down. That's the thing about being a ninja. A ninja doesn't try to like block it. A ninja is brave enough to allow you to experience the thing without having to act out on it. So that's just a skill you get better
Some
at.
of that I've been doing, but the rest, I will certainly try that.
All right, I'm happy
Time that I need to be. Okay, this one is deep. What's the difference between awareness and thinking?
Okay, so you're looking at me right now, right?
Yes, I am.
Are you aware of me?
I'm aware you're here, yes.
Are you aware of kind of maybe colors around you and things in the room? And
white, blue, brown, black.
So being aware of the colors and what's happening around us, and you can be aware without there being a thought inside going, hey, I wonder what's going on with that blue. I wonder what's going on with that guy. What's happening over here? Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So thinking is like that inner questioning, where you're seeing images and you have your thoughts in your head and you're wondering and you're trying to work something out. But just noticing something, whether it's hearing or looking or whatever, that's bigger. That's awareness. So awareness is the big thing. Thinking is just one of the small things inside awareness, just like seeing, just like smelling.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is it's a big question.
Finally, if there's one thing you could tell the whole world about mindfulness and look into the camera while you're saying this, what would it be?
Thank you for the tip. I would say that mindfulness and meditation, these are practices that teach you how to learn to play with your life in a more interesting way, you could say. Learn how to regulate yourself, but also meet the world in a way that's more optimal, that's more interesting, that's more exciting. And the good thing about what they show you is that you can choose how you want to do this. You can choose what exercises you do to build up what kind of muscle groups. So it's really a very beautiful human thing that anybody can do. Kids, teenagers, adults. You just got to find your own way into it.
Are you talking about brain muscle groups there?
Yeah, like brain muscle groups, exactly.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a great conversation.
Thank you, Connor.
Pleasure's mine. This is Connor Chase signing off for Kidevolve. Remember to check out our newest creative mind journeys at kidevolve.com.